Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show that's all about speaking your truth, sharing your stories, and sparking the conversations that matter most. I'm your host, Rodney W. Collins, and this is the Speak On It Show. On this show, we dive deep into the thoughts, experiences, and ideas that shape our world. It's a place where voices are heard, perspectives are celebrated, and discussions are not just encouraged, but cherished. Whether it's culture, politics, personal growth, or just life's everyday adventures, we're here to explore it all. We've got engaging interviews, thought-provoking discussions, and sometimes we might even stir the pot a little bit. Speak On The Show is where we challenge the status quo, celebrate diversity, and engage in conversations that make us think, laugh, and grow. So get ready to be inspired, get ready to connect, and most importantly, get ready to speak your truth. Without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. It's time for the Speak On It Show with your host, Rodney W. Collins. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome. I am Rodney W. Collins, and this is the Speak On The Show. First and foremost, giving honor to God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. I'm back, y'all. Yeah, had some a previous engagement last week that I had to tend to, but that's neither here nor there. We got some information we're going to pass on to you this morning, but let's go ahead and get all these formalities out the way as we always do. We're broadcasting live on the Rodney W. Collins channel on YouTube and Facebook every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, on YouTube and on Facebook. That's where we're broadcasting live. Like, share, subscribe. We're building a movement here. So make sure you share it with your friends, lean them into the topics, discuss the topics after the show is over. Don't be afraid to have these conversations offline. These things happen. We need to talk more. We need to get involved more. And we're going to get into a little bit of that as we go further into the show. Reggie P. my brother, good morning. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. So, as I mentioned, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, every Saturday morning here on the Rodney W. Collins channel on YouTube and Facebook. So, a lot went on, a lot going on. We're going to touch on some of the things, but I want to start off with this morning. It's amazing and funny to me at the same time. When we're looking at the climate, let's just say the climate in the country right now, with everything going on, with all the things going on with this administration, and then the things going on in Texas with the voting, with the redistricting and everything. And we've talked about these things on the show. But what I find amazing and funny at the same time is that we have the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who is using the same tactics in his posts on social media and everything that the person sitting in the White House has been using since 2015 when he came down the escalator, or however you want to look at it, on his Truth Social and everything. And I think the one thing that I find amazing, and the thing I find funny about that is that people who support this administration are in an uproar about what Gavin Newsom's doing. And as an old saying says, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if you're mad or upset at what Gavin Newsom is doing as far as his posts on social media and everything, but you haven't been mad since 2015 when this person sitting in the White House has been doing it, degrading people and so on and so forth, let me just give you the word that fits your anger. Hypocrite. You're a damn hypocrite if you have a problem with what Gavin Newsom's doing because he's the governor, but you didn't have a problem with what this person's doing and sitting in the White House that has been doing it with his first administration and leading up to the first time he won an election and is still doing it today and putting these lies and propaganda out there for all to see. So I'm going to say again, those who have a problem with it are hypocritical. You're a hypocrite. And it comes into play because you support one and don't like the other, not because of what they're saying. Let's just break it down this way. Not because of what each one of them is saying, whether it's lies, whether it's propaganda, whatever they're saying, You have a problem with the letter that they recognize themselves as being as a political party, Democrat and Republican. Me, myself, I find it funny from both sides, because I consider myself as an independent. But at the same time, and we're going to get into this a little later, it's those same people who don't have a problem with the things he's doing as far as trying to rewrite history. And we're just going to leave it at that until we get into this. OT, my brother, good morning. Good morning. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the continued support. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate it. So we're going to get into this, but just wanted to bring that up because to me, and only to me, because, this is my opinion, I find it amazing and funny at the same time that people can be in such an uproar about one person's opinions that is put out in the public and then have a problem with another person's opinion that's put out in the public. Not because of who they are, not because of what they're saying, but simply because of the political party that they're affiliated with. Yeah, it may go deeper than that for some of y'all. But most of you, they have a problem with it. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And this is how the propaganda started and the reason why Kamala Harris is not president at this time. Take with you what you want, but I know what I see, I know what I read, and I think I got a good understanding of what's going on in the world. Let's get into the news. Let's go. In the news. But I have some articles here, but I want to start off with this since we're on that amazing and funny at the same time. I want to start off with this specifically because I seen this the other day and it kind of, I didn't watch the whole thing, but just the concept of what was going on. So this week sometime or last week, I can't remember when it was, but Megyn Kelly, who we know who she is, used to be on TV, propaganda or whatever. And Marjorie Taylor Greene sat down and had a conversation. I know. Why would I even see that? I don't know. I just happened to see it when I was scrolling. Don't judge me. Listen to me. So they were having a conversation. And the part I caught in the conversation was them talking about Jasmine Crockett. Of course, Jasmine Crockett. Now, I want you to think about this. Jasmine Crockett has been in the mouths of a lot of these white, per se, what do they call themselves? Conservatives on that side of the aisle or whatever. I don't care where you sit, but this is where I'm going. You have two blonde-haired white women talking about an African-American female representative from Texas and saying, that this is the part that jumped out at me, and saying that she is not black. The eyelash, I don't make this up. I'm just telling you what I heard. They talked about her eyelashes, talked about her nails, talked about how she articulates herself, and then went on to say that she did not grow up poor, which I don't think that is a prerequisite to be black. I don't know, but that's what they said. She didn't grow up poor. She grew up going to private schools and all the different things you can think of that they want to label us as is that, she should not be talking for the black community or representing the black community because she's not black. And she's acting this way to try to get votes. Now, I've seen this same narrative from the black side as well, African-American black side about Jasmine Crockett. But I want to ask this question. When did it get comfortable in this United States of America for two blonde-haired white women to sit and record a podcast episode specifically talking about an African-American female representative from Texas and saying and tearing her down to the point of saying that she is not black and the persona that she carries is not real. How did we get here? How did we get here? Now, don't get me wrong. Everybody can have their opinion. But when you start digging into the fact of saying someone is not black, that's where, for me, my alarm clock starts going off. Because I'm still, to this day, and I'll bring this up to my own community. When did we get to the point of identifying who is black and who's not black enough? They did it with Kamala Harris. They did it with Barack Obama. They've done it with me before. Let's just be real. Some of you, they've done it with you. But when did we get to this point where this is a conversation of who's black and who's not black enough and all these different things? Yeah, Joe Biden said it to Charlamagne the God when he was on the Breakfast Club back when he was running at one time. But when did we get comfortable with people saying this about us in our community and not defending the fact that, and I wanted to say this later, that we're not a monolith as far as who we are as black people, African Americans in this country. But to see those two poster child, I'm going to say it, poster children for white women sit there and talk about her like this. Yeah, times have changed. And I'm not saying times have changed just recently. I'm talking about these are the things that were done back in the day when they put them up on the auction block and talked about what they can bring to the table if they were to be bought. Now, you may not agree with that analogy, but it's fact. It's fact. But I wanted to start off with that because it was something I seen that kind of didn't sit well with me because I'm just curious. I was just curious to know because I didn't watch the whole thing. I just seen that little piece and I was like, you know what? Nah. Because I'm not going to entertain someone or anyone denigrating or minimizing anyone who looks like me. And for that case, anyone who even doesn't look like me that I feel is being done an injustice to because of an opinion of someone else who may not know them. That's across the board for me. But when it comes to my sisters, right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm going to defend you if there's a defense to be had. And in any case where the defense goes from me actually being able to defend your point to them denigrating you from who you are to who they want to make the people believe you are, that's where I jump in and I have a problem. And I think we all should have a problem with that. No matter who you are, no matter where you come from, when we get to the point of minimizing or denigrating someone and not saying they're not this or they're not that or whatever. Now, if someone shows you who they are, yeah, believe them. That's one case. But in this case, didn't sit well with me. Did not sit well with me. So last week, and I had this, and I wanted to make sure that I talked about this because this, y'all see this here? Ice. See the big ice on there and everything. Nice trucks and everything. You know, they got about trucks for ice. But ice, and all the cuts that we're having and the things that are taken away from people, and ice dropped over $700,000 on tricked out, and this is what the article said, tricked out trucks with Trump's name on the back for a rap video recruitment ad. $700,000, 700 taxpayer dollars were spent for these trucks with Trump's name on the tailgate, I guess, because they didn't show that picture, to make a rap video about ICE. Immigration and Customs Enforcement spent over $700,000 tricking out a pair of trucks designed to look like Donald Trump's private jet. Not anything that deals with the United States of America, but his private jet. For a series of social media posts to boost recruitment efforts. A video posted by the Department of Homeland Security with music rap by rapper DaBaby Shows a Ford Raptor pickup truck and a GMC Yukon SUV rolling around Washington, D.C. and parked in front of the White House, Capitol, Lincoln Memorial, and the Washington Monument. The trucks have a navy blue paint job with red and white racing stripes and a gold ICE logo. The words "Defend the Homeland" appear on the side, and President Donald Trump is printed in gold on a rear window. So I guess it's on the back window, not on the bumper. I was mistaken. According to the federal procurement records seen by The Independent, the government paid more than $505,000 for the vehicles from at least 3 dealerships. The government spent another $227,000 on the wrap jobs provided by at least 4 companies. You can't make this up, y'all. So when we talk about all the people who lost federal jobs, all the people in this big, beautiful bill that are going to lose Medicaid, SNAP, and all the food that is sitting in warehouses, the biscuits per se, that they send over to for foreign aid and everything, all these things that are going bad and everything, for all the money that we're losing and all the money that they say they're saving and everything, we found, with a good administration, found $700,000 to spend on this. On this. Not to mention the amount of money they're going to spend on the jet that was given by Qatar, a gift per se, to refurbish it for not to be still in the fleet for the United States government, but he's going to take with him after he leaves the administration. But a lot of people have this issue and say government was too big. There were too many government employees and so on and so forth. But when you talk about fraud and waste and abuse, this right here is the epitome of fraud, waste, and abuse. But they're silent. They're quiet. You don't hear them. They ain't saying nothing. $700,000 to wrap, buy, and logo these vehicles. Oh, and including the rap video. Raymond Hunter, good morning. Appreciate you, my brother. Thanks for tuning in. So I'm going to go back again. For all you out there that are upset about Gavin Newsom putting his posts up, where y'all at about this? $700,000. Gavin Newsom ain't costing you nothing by putting his posts up. He just posted. But this is the thing that's going on. And at the same time that we spent this $700, well, not we as American citizens are losing the money, but as this administration spent $700,000 on those vehicles I just showed you, veterans may be denied food stamps under Trump's new law. Terrence Collins, my brother, good morning. Appreciate you, bro. Thanks for tuning in. Veterans may be denied food stamps under Trump's new tax law. $700,000 for some dog and pony show. The veterans will no longer be exempt from work requirements, rules for food stamps under President Trump's big, beautiful bill. Leaving many worried about how they will find employment. The SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is a federal aid program formerly known as food stamps, currently allows work exemptions for veterans, but that will soon end under legislation signed into law last month. Starting in 2026, all SNAP recipients, including veterans, will have to prove they are working, volunteering, participating in job training, or looking for work for at least 80 hours a month to keep their food stamps beyond 3 months. Unless they qualify for another exemption, such as having certain disabilities, reported State Line. About 1.2 million veterans live in households that participate in the SNAP program, according to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. What I'm trying to do is get settled into, stabilize into an apartment. I have the credentials to get a job. So it's not like I'm not going to look for a job, Daryl Chavis said, a former Army service member told State Line. I have to work. I'm in transition, and the obstacles don't make it easy. Nobody even came to help me, Chavis, who said he was diagnosed with PTSD for his service. Veterans have lower employment rates, largely due to the fact that fewer vets are looking for work, since they often, I want you to listen to this, since they often have more health conditions from serving and lower educational attainment, according to the center. Veterans may face barriers to employment, such as little work experience beyond military service, trouble finding a position that matches their skills, discrimination by employers, or lack of access to support services, they said. In addition, Black and Latino veterans experience higher unemployment rates than white veterans. While many vets say the new work requirements don't take into consideration the additional barriers they face, those who support the measure say eligibility changes are necessary to stop people who could be working from abusing the system. Most of the people that are in this category live in households with other people that have incomes, and so there really isn't a chronic food shortage here. And this came from Robert Rector. And where does Robert Rector work? He's a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. A senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Yeah, I know about the Heritage Foundation, Project 2025, but we won't go down that road. We have tens of thousands of free food banks that people can go to, he added. So it's just a requirement to nudge these people in the proper direction, and it should no longer go unenforced. Number one, my issue. To even know that we have veterans, people who have served this country needing food stamps, SNAP assistance, anything, that's my first issue. Where are we falling short with, as we hear people say all the time, around Veterans Day, or if they found out you're a vet, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. But they don't know the struggles of what happens with PTSD. They don't know the struggles of when you're going out here looking for a job. And if you put that you have some type of disability, it could prevent you from getting a job. Because when you say PTSD, people think of the extreme. People think of the extreme of you waking up, maybe choking your spouse, and all the different things you can think of that go with PTSD. Those are the extremes that they think about. But no one wants to take into account that there are a lot of veterans who want to work that simply can't work because the PTSD that they struggle from does not allow them to be confined in that type of environment. So are we taking account for those severe cases, or are we just putting everybody in a bucket and saying that if you're not working, you're not going to get these benefits? Because that's what it sounds like from what I read. But we got $700,000 to put on some trucks, buy trucks, do rap video, but we don't have money to take care of the veterans. If all those people out there, we support the veterans. No, you don't. No, you don't. And I've said this before, and I don't know if I've said it here, but I'm going to say it today. When people say they support the veterans, please, and this is for some folks, not all, please put the caveat on the back end of that and say, when you say, I support the veterans, under conditions. That's what you need to say, under conditions. Because it's not a blanket thing that you support. You support veterans under conditions. Under the conditions of, well, they shouldn't get this. They shouldn't get that. They need to get this. They should work. You don't know the struggles of some of these veterans go through. You don't know the struggles of the homeless people out here that are putting in encampments. You don't know unless you've been there and unless you know them. But there's this mindset that we put them all in one bucket and that'll take care of the problem. Raymond Hunter, give veterans a job. If they don't exist, create them. What better way to thank us for our service? Yeah. And here's the other part of that. Thank you, Raymond Hunter. The other part of that they don't want to look at. Hold on, Raymond Hunter. In federal speak, support means a funded program. Yes, a funded program. And here's the other part of that. Thank you, Raymond Hunter. Here's the other part of that. Give veterans a job. A lot of people don't know this because they know, but they were upset about it. Most veterans that apply for government jobs usually get them because they have hiring preference. But now with the elimination of a lot of these government jobs, there's no hiring preference to have because there's no jobs. And most of the people that got laid off from these federal jobs were who? Veterans. So don't give me this, I support the veterans. Yes, you support them with conditions. There's a lot of people that say veterans shouldn't have got any type of priority to get those government jobs. They used to say it was double dipping and all these other things. But the federal employment system was created to find veterans jobs when they left military service. That's what it was put in place for, civil service. But we ain't never got no money. We never have any money. And I want people to understand when I talk about this, it leads into other things that are bigger. SNAP, food assistance, small things. And I'm saying small things, but you understand what I'm saying here. It's not a small thing as far as who's impacted. It's a small thing as far as what we see. Because I want everybody to be aware, just because they haven't done it yet does not mean it's not going to happen as far as affecting your disability payout, for your disability claim that you put in, for whatever injuries you may have assessed during your service. Do not think that that may not be on the chopping block, excuse me. Simply because I support the veterans under conditions. Now, will it happen? I don't know. But anything is possible with what's going on with this administration. And when we talk about veterans, I want to get into this. I really want to get into this. This is a veteran. Y'all know who this is? Probably don't. Y'all don't, because you know. But his name is, and I just had it here. It's Mr. Powell. Oh, where'd his name go? Harold Powell. 68-year-old Harold Powell. Let's get into this first real quick. Raymond Hunter, just be curious, have you ever seen a C-SPAN discussing with a congressional subcommittee fully discussing the actual needs of veterans? I have not. No, I have not. No. And that's one thing that is always done under the cover of darkness when it comes to veterans benefits and things like that. There's never put out in front so the American public can see who is and who is not for veteran benefits and things like that. It's always done under the cover of darkness. The only thing you see is when they come in front and they talk about a budget. They never talk about the behind the scenes of cutting this or getting rid of that or how it's going to affect veterans. You never hear those conversations. The only people you hear those conversations for are the lobbyists for veterans affairs. That's it. That's it. You'll never see it on C-SPAN. You'll never see that, because if you put it out there, now it's a whole nother conversation with the people that support veterans without conditions. There's a difference. That's the difference. So they put enough out there for the people with the conditions, but they won't put it out there for people that don't have conditions about how they support veterans. But I digress. Thank you, Raymond Hunter. Let's go. So this is Harold Powell, 68 years old, a disabled, wheelchair-bound man who is known for his busking or street performing in the area. He's recovering after being shot by a 32-year-old named Gregory Tim, who accused Mr. Powell of misrepresenting himself by claiming service in the Navy. And let me say that again. Gregory Tim, 32-year-old Gregory Tim, shot wheelchair-bound Harold Powell, 68 years old, while he sat in his wheelchair on a pier 55, on July 31st, because Mr. Tim, and I don't even know if I should use this Mr. in there, but I'm going to keep it. Mr. Tim accused Mr. Powell of stolen valor. Now, I've talked about stolen valor before. That's where you wearing ribbons or wearing military things that wasn't rightly earned per se. And this is what Mr. Tim accused Mr. Powell of doing. And it got to the point where he actually snatched something from Mr. Powell. I think it was, it says, Tim allegedly demanded that Powell show proof. Let's start there. He showed proof of his service while Powell attempted to gain access to his wallet to show him, which he shouldn't have to. Tim snatched a patch off of Powell's belongings. Powell then grabbed a knife he had on his person in self-defense. Tim continued to demand proof of service from Mr. Powell, who then pulled an airsoft gun from a holster. Reports say Tim took steps back, pulled a gun from his bag, and shot Mr. Powell at nearly point-blank range in his chest. In the video, you can see Mr. Powell slumped over in his wheelchair as people scatter around the boardwalk. Mr. Tim put the gun back in his bag and waited for the police, who then arrested him. Now, I want you to hear this clear. Let me get on the microphone for this. Mr. Tim's attorneys are claiming self-defense. Mr. Tim's attorneys are claiming self-defense. The bullet that struck Mr. Powell cracked his ribs but missed vital organs. According to Powell, doctors were surprised by his recovery. So let me go back to that statement I made. I support veterans under conditions. Now, I want to put this in context, and people are going to say, oh, there he goes race baiting again, but you have to have the context of this. And I'm going to ask this question. As a veteran, I'm going to ask this question. I have never personally, and I have never seen personally, any person of color approach anyone of color or non-color and question their military service. I haven't, and I haven't seen anyone. That may have happened, but I've never seen it. But I continue through my lifetime and experiences, see white males specifically confront other folks, black, white, Hispanic, or whatever, and question them on their service, whether they should be able to wear this or whether they stolen valor or all these different things. I guess my question would be, is it that serious to you if someone is wearing something that they didn't earn, that you got to get to the point of shooting them? Is it that serious? Because here's the thing. There's surplus stores in every city, military surplus stores in every city, all over. You can go in there and buy a uniform that quick and wear it. They sell camouflage things online. They sell all the different uniforms online. You can find them anywhere you want. You can go on Amazon and find military uniform. But when did it get to the point of confronting someone in this manner consistently and not just asking the questions, but turning to violence? I guess that's where the disconnect for me comes in. Where's the violence in this? And who made you the overall authority to confront people who you feel have stolen valor? The people who steal valor per se, that are perpetrating being military and everything like that, it shows in who they are if you just watch them long enough that you don't have to confront them. And the people that know. But to get to the point where you feel you got to confront a man in a wheelchair and shoot him, what are we doing? And I say, what are we doing as a society rather than just a black and white issue? What are we doing? This goes along with what I just said about Megyn Kelly and Margaret Taylor Greene questioning Jasmine Crockett's blackness. What are we doing? When did it get so comfortable for you to confront people about who they are? And why are we so comfortable with confronting people about what they earned or who they are or whether they should be in a neighborhood, whether that's their car, all these different things that are going on that we've seen for years? What is the issue here? Now, I understand when people say, see something, say something. But if you see something, before you say something, you need to know something about the situation, because assumptions can be a life or death situation for certain people. And you know who I'm talking about. Those are those James Battle, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. This is the stuff that eats at me, because it just doesn't pass the smell test for me, the smell test. But also, and I'm glad Mr. Powell's good. I'm glad he's okay and recovering. But also, there's this. You remember? Excuse me. Do you remember? Do you remember when 10 black people at a Buffalo supermarket were shot down? Remember when this person just went in, the white supremacist gunman went into the supermarket in Buffalo and just started shooting, ended up killing 10 people? Well, now, that gunman who targeted black people specifically wants those charges dropped. He wants the charges dropped. He didn't say he didn't do it. He wants the charges dropped. And here's where it says, attorneys for the white supremacist gunman who killed 10 black people at the Buffalo supermarket told a judge Thursday, this was last week, that the federal charges against him should be dropped because, watch this now, there weren't enough black people and other minority groups on the grand jury that indicted him. This is for those all the way in the back, not the semi back, but all the way in the back. So let me get on this. He told the judge on Thursday that the federal charges against him should be dropped because there weren't enough black people and other minority groups on the grand jury that indicted him. Let's process this for a minute. You had a white supremacist that walked into a store, a grocery store, killed 10 African-American black people in the supermarket. He was indicted, charged. He's saying that the charges should be dropped because there weren't enough, wait for it, black people and other minority groups on the grand jury that indicted him. Do you remember all the cases that I've talked about on this show that have sent African-American black men to jail for 20, 30, 40 years for crimes they didn't commit, who, when they go back and look, evidence was tampered with, didn't matter. Juries were all white. Didn't matter. He was convicted by a jury of his peers. And I could go on and on and on, but what I'm trying to get you to understand is it is so ironic that at this stage and in this climate, that this person and his attorneys feel comfortable to come in front of a judge and ask for the charges to be dropped, not because he didn't do it, not because the jury was tainted, not because there's new evidence, but because they're saying there were not enough black and minority jurors seated for his indictment. Our community, our civil rights attorneys, the everyday man on the street of color has been convicted of crimes in front of a jury of people that he ain't never seen before, that have no melanin content that he has, and no one ever brought up the fact that there were not enough blacks or minorities on the jury. Now, it comes up at times. However, they always resort back to the fact that the defense attorney and the prosecution are able to question the jurors before they're seated and eliminate the ones that they don't think will be giving them a good trial. And in most cases, when that happens, the African Americans, Latinos, Hispanics, anyone other than whites are normally eliminated depending on the nature of the crime that the person is being convicted of. Let's just look through it. I'm only speaking facts. I'm not making anything up. But now, in this climate, we have a white guy who walked into a supermarket, killed 10 people, found guilty, and now he's saying, wasn't enough black folks on the jury. Wasn't enough minorities and black folks on the jury. I should be found not guilty. All charges should be dropped. Really? Really? But no one's talking about this. Nobody's saying anything about this in mainstream media or otherwise. It's just sliding under the radar. And the reason why, in my opinion, it's sliding under the radar, because it exposes the hypocrisy of the justice system and the injustice in the justice system, that this would even come in front of a judge to be asked that question. Oh, boy. Sometimes you got to laugh to keep from crying, y'all. Sometimes you got to laugh to keep from crying. Let's go. Now I got two things I want to touch on under this straight talk today, but I want to start with this one because I would encourage each of you to go and watch this. Raymond Hunter, these are monsters that commit monstrosities. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. But I would encourage each of you to watch this because I want to start with this. Do y'all know who this is? This is Amanda Seales. And I've long been an Amanda Seales fan because she's unapologetically who she is, no matter how anybody feels about her. She's a Canadian African-American heritage. Began her career as a child actress on My Brother and Me, whatever, but she has a BA from the State University of New York at Purchase, a school known for its strong arts programs. Her undergraduate studies laid the foundation for her later work in performance media and cultural critique. She has an MA in African American studies with a concentration in hip hop from Columbia University. People may not remember, but she was on The View for a little, not The View, I'm sorry. Yeah, The Real. She was on The Real back in 2020, and she left after 6 months because of creative differences between her. I think Tamar Braxton was on there, and the other ones, I don't know, Lonnie Love and one of the Maori girls, and I think Jenny Ma and all them. But she ended up not staying too long because her voice was a little bit too brash for what they wanted on The Real. They wanted it to be real, but she was too real. But I've long been a fan of hers. But I watched this thing the other day, and Amanda Seales, let me get her name right, was debating 20 black conservatives. 20 black conservatives. And when I say black conservatives, I'm talking about black Republicans. Let's just be real. They consider themselves conservative. And they came with different topics or whatever, and they gave, they had her sitting there, had an empty chair on the other side, and they were in a circle. And when they announced what the top was going to be, whoever got to the chair first was able to sit down. I think they gave them a couple minutes to talk about what they did or ask her questions, and she could push back. It was a very good debate. I will post it on my page so anybody can see it that wants to see it. But I want to specifically talk about, and it was good. It had some good topics on there. They talked about she talked about reparations was one of the main topics, and why reparations is good and why it should happen and everything. But there's one young man that I think struck a chord with a lot of people. That's this young man here. I think he said he was like 20 years old. I think he's maybe 20. But he's very controversial in his statements. His parents are from Angola. They live up in, I can't remember, Vermont or somewhere up in there. But he said some things that go back to the conversation I had a couple months ago about the difference between how African Americans and actual Africans that come to America have this disconnect of our struggle, where they would tell you that they're not African American, they're African, because they look down on us and so forth, so on and so forth. But we'll go down that road another time because I've already talked about it before. But she also went in and she mentioned, after he brought up these things, his parents were from Angola, which Amanda directly referenced during the debate. His full background was not confirmed. You know, he's a young guy, so I don't have a problem with that. But he called Black culture toxic. And he denied the existence of white supremacy in this country. He said he identified as Black, but his framing of Blackness leaned heavily toward cultural critique rather than solidarity. His Angolan heritage was mentioned in the context of dismissing systemic racism and reparations, which Amanda Seals challenged as a form of diasporic disconnect. And this is what she had to say. She said, I refuse to allow anybody from Grenada, from Angola, from any other place to come and try to undermine the experience of Black Americans. And it hit home with me. Not only because we have someone with the same melanin content, and I will continue same melanin content as me, who doesn't feel because his mindset or his thought is not being an African American, but being from Angola and being an American in this country now, that the Black experience is overemphasized as far as his opinion. Now, mind you, I'm going to say in his opinion, because he hasn't had the experiences maybe you and I have had in this country. So he looks at it and says systemic racism is not real. He says that Black culture is toxic. He says these things, and it just opened my eyes to the point that we, as African Black Americans, continually have to defend who we are, not only against what they call the oppressor, but white supremacist mindset, but also the people that come to this country who weren't born here, that migrate here, legally or otherwise, that treat us in the same manner because of what they think they know, rather than what they truly know about the history of what this country has done. And for this young man, I will say he may be 20 years old, maybe 20. But I heard Amanda say to him, he will get, and she didn't say it this way, but I'm going to say it, he will get his Negro wake-up call in due time. In due time. And don't get me wrong, I don't wish any harm or any bad on this young man. What I do hope is that somehow, some way, he will find someone to guide him, to teach him, to show him that his mindset and what he thinks is true is so far from the truth. And I think that's where, and I know I've said this many times before, but why does it seem that we have to teach everyone or tell everyone that what they're talking about or what they're saying is not true? The lies that are being told, the falseness, I'm going to digress for a minute. Let's just think about, and I'm going to take this off. Let's just think about what we heard this week. And we heard it a while ago, but we heard it more this week. About this administration talking about taking things out of museums that don't fit the narrative of what this administration wants. Specifically, African-American history. They want to take these things out because they're saying that And Jillian Michaels said something on the thing, and I didn't even want to reference her, but I got this wrote down. Jillian Michaels, who was some kind of weight loss guru or whatever she was, who's now being sued by some people that were on this fitness challenge, but that's another story, was on Abby Phillips one night, and she said slavery was good. Slavery was not bad. And then she said everything white is bad according to some people. But I'm trying to get people to understand, and I say this over and over again, and I sound like a broken record, but it's real. We are more than just slavery in this country. We are more than slaves. We are ancestors of the enslaved, not slaves. We're ancestors of the enslaved, not slaves. We are we are products of our ancestors who were not slaves, but they were enslaved. They were kings and queens and people that had jobs and did things, great things, before they were brought here. So we need to clear that up and walk in that mindset that we come from a people who were not just identified as slaves. They were enslaved. That's the first narrative. The second narrative is, and I hate to talk about this, man, but we let me get Raymond Hunter's comment first, and then I'll go back into this. Raymond Hunter, African Americans are now transitioning to foundational Black Americans because of tethers like this. I am in favor of deporting these tethers. After 400 years of battle, the last thing we need is more enemies. Brian Hoodie, good morning. Keep speaking truth. Thanks, bro. I appreciate you. I'm going to transition because I wrote this down. Because we talked about that young man and his mindset and, the stuff he was spewing that didn't make sense and, is going by this propaganda. But Jillian Michaels this week was on Abby Phillips and talked about slavery. Slavery was not bad. Said he's not whitewashing slavery, and you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race. She went into the point of saying that slavery was not just done by white people. It was done by all these other people and everything. But you can't erase 400 years of enslaving people and say that it was good. And I asked this question in this way and say, if slavery was good, for the sake of argument, it built the economy. It was a good thing. It gave America global power. And if that's the case, okay, let's follow that logic. Let's follow that logic for a little bit. Because the aftermath was supposed to be, after slavery was freedom. In this country, they had grown wealth, global power, all those different things, right? Tony Williams, what qualifies Jillian Michaels to speak on slavery? Yeah, that's the big question, but complexion for the protection, bro. Let me just throw that out there. And then, let me put this caveat before I go a little further. Jillian Michaels, and this is where my concern comes in. Jillian Michaels adopted a Black daughter. She's 15 years old. From Haiti. She adopted her when she was 2. 13 years. She's had this young lady. Now, I'm not saying that she's not a good parent. I would never say that. It's not my way, not what I do. But I will ask the question on what is being taught to this young lady. And is her mind being swayed that she's not like the African Americans in this country because she's from Haiti, in the same mindset that young man from Angola had the same thing? Tony Wiggs, great seeing you too, bro. I'm saying, bro. Yeah. Raymond Hunter, she got sound bites from the White House communication staff. Of course. They're going to ride that. They're going to ride that. But as I said, my main concern is that young 15-year-old young lady that she's been raising for 13 years, the mindset. But I digress. Let's get back. Thank you, Tony Williams, for what qualifies her to speak on slavery. Yeah. So if slavery was good, as I've said, after it built the economy, gave American global power, if we use that logic in the aftermath of what went on, because what was supposed to come next after that was freedom, right? Freedom. But it wasn't freedom. What came after enslavement, slavery, was white supremacy. White supremacy came after. We can always talk about the freedom was supposed to come, but white supremacy came after slavery. It was there, but it became more engrossed in what this country was about after slavery. After slavery ended, black folks didn't get justice. They got Jim Crow. Lynching, voter suppression, mass incarceration, police brutality, medical neglect, economic exclusion, and a media machine that still paints blackness as a threat. But we were supposed to have freedom. And slavery wasn't bad, it was good. But after that, we didn't get the benefits of being free because of white supremacy. And then what they forget, and I don't think they forget what they want to overlook. Slavery wasn't just a moment in history. Slavery was a blueprint. I said it. Slavery was a blueprint. A system designed to keep power in white hands. And it's still running today. From housing to healthcare, from education to employment, black communities are still paying the price for a system built on stolen labor and stolen lives. So when people debate whether slavery was good, what they're really doing is defending the system it built. When people debate whether slavery was good, which it shouldn't even be up for debate, let's just be honest. What they're really doing is defending the system that was built. They're not debating history, because they don't want to talk about the history. They're not debating history. They're protecting white supremacy. Now, some people agree, some people won't. That's your choice. But all I ask you to do is look at the facts. Because I don't speak comparisons here. I speak facts. And I do my research to get these facts. And I come up with these diatribes, I guess I can call them, or, to express the things that I've seen from my point of view. Raymond Hunter, how in the world did we survive? I look at my people and I say, glad we made it thus far. We are by default one of the greatest stories ever told. Yes. But that's where the problem is. They don't want the story to continue to be told. If you were to read a book, not knowing what you know from your experiences, from what your history you know and everything, but if you were to read a book that specifically identified a people through anything and everything that they've been through and still persevered, it would be a success story. But in this climate, in this country, at this time, it's not a success story. It's a story that we need to erase, and we need to do everything in our power to ensure that they don't get the exact freedoms that we have, one for one. It's always going on. But if you read this in a book, if it was written in a book and you knew nothing about anything, you would say, damn. That's a success story right there. But because of who it's about, no. And when I say this, this isn't about guilt. Let's just be fair. I'm not trying to make anybody feel guilty. I'm just trying to tell you the truth and hope that you will receive the truth. That's it. And if you can't face that, you're not ready for the conversation. Which what we know to be true is most people are not ready to have the conversation. They weren't ready last week and are not going to be ready this week. And each week that goes on, 52 weeks in a year, just starts adding up and adding up and adding up to the point where we get tired of talking about it and saying it because they're not listening to what we have to say. So I'll leave you with this on this topic. If you're white and you're tuned in today, this is your moment. This is your moment. Not to feel guilty, but to be honest. Learn the history, teach it as it was and as it is, and challenge the lies when you hear them. Challenge the lies when you hear them. James Battle, they won a race war so that they can use his military against us. Raymond Hunter, we need to learn to differ between truth and propaganda and then what to internalize. Now, that was for the white folks. Let me repeat that. If you're white and listening, this is your moment. Not to feel guilty, but to be honest. Learn the history, teach it, challenge the lies when you hear them. Now, for my black folks. If you're black, you're not the descendant of slaves. As I said before, you're not the descendant of slaves. You are the descendant of enslaved people. You're descendant of enslaved people. We need to change that narrative of how we speak of this. We're not descendants of slaves. We're descendants of enslaved people. There's a difference. May not sound like a difference, but there's a difference. You come from brilliance, resilience, and power. Don't let anybody minimize that. And as Raymond Hunter said, the greatest story ever told. The greatest story ever told. I'm going to wrap it up for today. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I got another engagement this morning, so I got to get ready to get out of here. But I will say this. When you get in these conversations about people who want to say slavery was good compared to what we know is true, you don't have to argue. State facts. And let them know that you're not a descendant of slaves. You're a descendant of people who were enslaved. That's where we need to start with our narrative when we talk about this. We are from a people who were enslaved, not descendants of slaves. Change that narrative with that one line that I just mentioned. Watch how it disarms a lot of what they're saying towards you. I'll be back again. Oh, no. I won't be back next week, but I will have something posted. We'll get in there, but I won't be on next week, but I'll be on the week after because I got previous engagement. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate y'all's support. And look, do not let anybody tell you who you are. You know better than anybody else, and you know your ancestry and who you are and what you fight for in this country, in this life. Don't let anybody minimize your struggle. Don't let anybody minimize your story. Celebrate your wins. Embrace your losses because it makes you who you are and well-rounded. I love y'all and I appreciate y'all, and I'll be back again next week. In 2 weeks, excuse me. God bless and good fortune. Appreciate you, Raymond Hunter. Thanks for the input today. As I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely keep your faith in God. I'll see y'all next week. in 2 weeks. I keep saying next week. In 2 weeks. I love y'all, and I'm out. Peace.